This video is an extra video designed to help you understand kidney anatomy and function because it is quite complicated. And in order to understand osmoregulation, you first need to understand the way the kidney works. So you have two kidneys and they're in your abdomen. They're connected to a blood supply and also through the ureters to your bladder. Their function is to filter the blood, to take out impurities such as urea and excrete those as waste products in urine. And so it's difficult to separate out blood, but what they need to do is they have blood with waste molecules needs to come into that, and then through the process of filtration through small particles, small tissues called nephrons, which I'll show you in a minute, those waste particles are removed, and then the clean blood exits. And the waste particles are collected through collecting ducts into the ureters as diluted waste, which are then expelled. So this is what the nephron looks like in a slightly stylized anatomical form. So the blood supply coming in here enters what's called the Bowman's capsule, which is this capsule here, and there's a capillary bed of lots of capillaries there called the glomerulus. The blood comes in under high pressure and squeezes through into the Bowman's capsule. Now, the filtration process means that large things such as blood cells and proteins don't go through and they continue in the bloodstream and back to the body. Whereas waste, water, some nutrients and other molecules end up on the other side in what's called the filtrate. So because the filtrate has some good stuff in it, like water that the body might need, or salts or glucose, there's a process of reabsorption. So the reabsorption happens in what's called the loop of Henle, where capillaries and this part of this tubule are closely connected, and transfer of materials through osmosis, diffusion, and active transport happens in order for the good things to end up back in the blood. And the wastes continue in the tubule for excretion. So there's a primary process of filtration, which keeps the large molecules and the cells in the blood. And we lose some small molecules, both positive and negative, some that are useful and some that are wastes. Then the useful ones are reabsorbed, and then what's left is water plus wastes, which is excreted. This is shown in the physical model, which I've shown in class and which we'll have a quick look at next. So you can see that what we have there is two things with water in them. One is the waste, which is diluted in water, and the other is the clean blood, which also has a large volume of water. And so the decision about how much water ends up in each, and therefore how much urine is produced, is an important one, and it's part of what's called osmoregulation. So it's controlled by the movements of salt between the tubule and the blood, and also the movement of water. And so the body regulates this in response to stimuluses and responses in order to create homeostasis. So for instance, a stimulus might be there's low blood volume, which is picked up by the blood being too salty. Obviously, as the water reduces, the saltiness increases. So there are osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus that detect an increase in what's called osmotic pressure. So when the blood is salty, that's high osmotic pressure. Alternatively, a stimulus for low blood volume might be low blood pressure. Obviously, the less blood there is in the system, the less pressure. As you increase the volume of the blood, you increase the blood pressure as well. And that's picked up by baroreceptors. So baroreceptor is something that recognizes pressure, like a barometer in the weather prediction. So a baroreceptor will pick up decreased blood pressure. Either way, the hypothalamus gets this signal, and then will signal further for the release of ADH from the pituitary. So ADH stands for Antidiuretic Hormone. So moving through here, the antidiuretic hormone will have effects on the blood vessel, but also on the kidney, in order to increase reabsorption of water, which will increase blood volume and blood pressure. The constriction of vessels will also increase blood pressure. So antidiuretic hormone is the one that does that, and it's a hormone that reduces the urine volume. So as you can imagine, if there's lots of water leaving through urine, you end up with that low blood volume. If you stop the urination, you can retain more water and increase blood volume and therefore blood pressure as well. So in our model, here's the water, meaning the blood coming in to the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule. That's going to be separated out into the water with wastes and the water with blood cells in it. And antidiuretic hormone controls how much water is in each, how much is being excreted and how much is being reabsorbed. One of the ways it does this is it increases the number of aquaporin channels that go between those. So we know that water can diffuse across membranes because it's small enough, but because it is slightly polar, it's not a super efficient process, and so the movement of water across can be increased by putting in the aquaporins, which are water channels, and that will increase the rate of water reabsorption. One of the ways that this can happen is also by reabsorbing salts. Putting salts on this side, it increases the rate of osmosis as well. So active transport of salts into the blood will mean that the water moves across as well. And so in this mechanism, the osmoregulation happens, the movement of water and salt, in order to retain appropriate saltiness and volume of the blood at all times. And what ends up changing is the waste. So the volume of urine and the concentration of urine changes, but that's okay because we're getting rid of it, whereas the concentration and volume of blood stays the same.